We know as athletes, at times, there's just some people you don't vibe with, okay? What is the vibe check from your perspective between Caitlyn and Angel, completely objectively speaking?
Yeah, I mean, look, like you said, sometimes you just don't, the vibe is not there, and that's okay. They still keeping it cute while keeping it ultimately, competitive out there. Somebody gonna get knocked around every once in a while, but
I don't think nothing is wrong with that.
I don't think anything is wrong with it either. It's a physical sport.
So Fumble fam, this week's guest is no stranger to the platform. She's a former first-round WNBA draft pick. She's a WNBA champion and All-Star in her 12-year career. Welcome back to the show, Essence Carson. Thank you so much for coming on with us.
Thank you for having me again. We had so much fun last time, man. It's time to run it back.
Yeah, once again, Samaria forgot to mention that Essence is from Jersey. We gonna acknowledge it every single time. She's so mad. Ain't nobody from Atlanta popping. It's all good. It's all good. Man, Essence, it's truly a pleasure as usual. You look amazing, first and foremost. Gotta acknowledge the beauty outside and within. But we from Jersey. I hate the Knicks, okay? I hate the Knicks.
I get it.
A couple days ago, we saw them absolutely collapse in the fourth quarter versus Indiana. My question for you out the gate is, did the Knicks lose this game or did the Pacers win game one?
Man, look, man, as an athlete, as a professional athlete, you always want to give credit where credit is due. So, Pacers fought hard to the end, but at the end of the day, there was a collapse, and the Knicks lost that one. It's hard in the playoffs, man. And as fans, they see that year in and year out. You see upsets happen, whether it's in professional sports or collegiate sports. It's time to play. It's when all the lights are on, and in that game, the Knicks definitely lost that game. But from what I've seen thus far in the playoffs, it's almost like the Knicks like being in this situation, So we'll see what game two.
Not necessarily on this end of it. Not necessarily on this end, but they are no strangers to comebacks for sure.
No, this is true. This is true.
All right, Essence, let's kind of segue into the WNBA. The season just kicked off. Who is your favorite to win just a few games in?
To win just a few games in. Right now, Minnesota is 3-0, but it is rather early. And the New York Liberty, returning champs, I mean, they did beef up their roster while also losing a big part of that in B. She's down for some time, but they still have all of the pieces that they would need to repeat. But it's hard. You ask the Aces, it's hard to repeat. But right now, I'm rocking with the home team. I used to play for the Liberty. I'm going to rock with them right now. But, other front runners would definitely be the Aces because never count them out always. You got one of the most generational talents that's playing right now for the Aces. Everyone has to acknowledge that. It is true. And then Minnesota, they just play as a team. When they get the things going and they got Nafisa down there going to work. I mean, it's hard to be the team that's gelling on all cylinders.
I would be remiss if we did not ask you about the Indiana Fever, right? They retooled and reloaded for this season. They look good. They were able to keep Kelsey Mitchell, which was huge for them this offseason. But in their first game, we saw an incident between Caitlyn and Angel, right? You are a competitor. We know as athletes, at times, there's just some people you don't vibe with, okay? What is the vibe check from your perspective between Caitlyn and Angel? Completely objectively speaking.
Yeah, I mean, look, two competitors, fierce competitors. They've been, we can say they've been rivals since college, and they bringing that into the WNBA, which is, help with some things. Like you said, sometimes you just don't. The vibe is not there, and that's okay. They still keeping it cute while keeping it ultimately, competitive out there. Somebody gonna get knocked around every once in a while. But
I don't think nothing is wrong with that.
I don't think anything is wrong with it either. It's a physical sport. Basketball is a physical sport. And I'm glad that the women are bringing that back to the forefront, just showing that we're fierce competitors while we can, live the lives that we live and portray who we want to portray off the floor. When we step in between those four lines, we mean business. And everyone on that court knows that. And that's exactly what they're doing. It's good for the sport.
I was going to ask you that. I think that people are okay with the physicality and the rivalry between the two women, but maybe the fans, right? And I feel like we talked about this the last time that you came on. That's where the issue is. Do you feel like that's just a part of the game, or should these ladies be fighting back when they hear stuff during a game?
I, there's a catch-22 with that, right? When you're on one of the largest platforms in the world, uh, you're always going to be subjected to anyone and everyone's opinion. Fans included, and you have to welcome that. If you have to take the good with the not so good, right? The good with the bad, and in that case, that doesn't mean that you lay down, you become a doormat, right? No, you can stand up for yourself, but just understand that that's going to come every game, whether you're playing, whether it's recaps on television. It doesn't matter. It's a part of the territory, and that's okay, right? Can I admit that sometimes fans do take it too far? Because at the end of the day, we are human beings. Yes, they do. You have to have some type of moral compass with that as a fan. But as a player, yes, stand your ground, but do know that it does come with the territory.
For you, what would be something that's out of bounds for a fan to say?
Of course, man. There's plenty of things that are out of
Or
bounds,
give
right?
us a
Talking about
story,
someone's
like if you
family,
can.
a story that was out of bounds. We want to go there again, guys.
We already know.
Yes.
We already know. So you're part of
Look,
one of the
come on.
biggest stories. Yeah. We good.
Family, family, is definitely should be off limits. When we're getting down, we're talking about race. Although we don't understand that race is a huge, topic in this country and throughout the world, especially right now with what's going on socially. And I know oftentimes that does come to the forefront of the Caitlyn and Angel conversation. And that's, to me, that's just a reflection of what is actually happening in the larger picture in society here, where you have, when you do try to start the race wars on the court, from the fan perspective, at the end of the day, these are two women that are good and great at what they do. They're out there being fierce competitors, and let it be that. So when you're attacking them, their character, especially when they haven't done anything what someone would deem wrong, I think it's definitely out of bounds. In my case, I've gone through that myself, as well as my other Rutgers teammates, back in '07, where we were subjected to some derogatory language that should not have been spat at anyone, let alone women of that age, transitioning from teenagers into young women. Some people on the team were 18 years old, 18, 19, the oldest probably being 20. And when, the whole Don Imus situation, and dealing with that and being attacked, not for our performance on the court, but how we show up in this world. That has nothing to do with the playing of the game. However, instead of championing two teams, even if you don't like one of the teams, it could be a rival, you choose to focus on race, you choose to focus on stature, you choose to focus on gender. And I think as fans, you do have to have some sort of moral compass. And I think everyone needs that, not just fans.
I got a follow up question, real quick. Do you feel like a lot of the hate speech and negativity that fans spew is actually aiding the growth of the WNBA, which clearly has hit a launching pad of sorts?
Unfortunately, in this country, it seems that when you have controversy, it breeds growth, right? That's very, very unfortunate. However, it doesn't have to be that way. Now, I do believe that conversation does aid in the growth of the league. Conversation, rivalries, storytelling. Now, hate speech, no, I don't think we need that in order to grow the league. Conversation, absolutely. Conversation, the rivalries, love it. Get that conversation going. Pitting two teams against one another, not two human beings where you're not focusing on the actual game of basketball. That we don't need. I don't think anyone needs hate speech. And at this present time in today's society, I don't think hate speech is needed at all. Right now, we're watching a country roll back, walk backwards in all the things that we've accomplished, not only as, women, but also as Black people. I don't think we need to walk back. I don't think it's needed. And I am a strong believer in that, you know, look, we can all love each other while also still remaining fierce and tough competitors, And at the end of the day, yeah, controversy is cool. The rivalry is cool, but I think you need to table the hate speech. Absolutely.
See, this is when I get confused a little bit, a little
Yeah.
bit,
Life is hard,
because
right? Life is complex.
life is
I'm
very
gonna sip
complex,
some tea
very
to that
layered.
one.
Do your thing. But like, cause you are a Knicks fan, a Knicks supporter, right? We watch videos of Knicks fans throwing trash at fans wearing opposing jerseys, saying SMD at any and every opportunity they get, right? To me, that is so much more disrespectful than some spectator saying something that can roll off of my back. I think physical attacks, physical confrontation to me is far more disrespectful than some words that somebody utters. And there is a part of, especially with the New York fan base, there's a part of them that is inherently disrespectful, and they get applauded for that. They get applauded for that. And I don't understand where that line is, where that balance comes into play, because I see it every day, especially as the Knicks continue to have success in this playoff run.
Yeah, I think, there's so many different layers to this conversation, right? And as you continue to peel the layers back when we're talking about hate speech and what we deem to be disrespectful or out of bounds, we can peel that onion back and we can go all the way back into, the civil rights movement. Prior to that, when we're talking about sharecropping, prior to that, when we're talking about slavery, prior to that, when we're talking about, our trek from Africa to America. It is very, very layered. Now, while I believe what you're talking about is definitely disrespectful, right? But then when you take it past that and you start going and you digging into those generational wounds, you're talking about those generational traumas of my skin, me being not enough just because of what I look like, my appearance on the outside. I think that is absolutely out of bounds. Now, I understand the lingo and the temperament of that northeastern corridor. I don't want to limit it
Bro,
to New York because it's not just New York, right? We
it's
can
not.
we can go all the way up to Boston. You know what I mean? Let's keep it real. Let's keep it 100 right here. It's not just New York. New York is just winning right now, and New York hasn't won in a while, and they're feeling really confident about it. I do not. Now, if somebody would have said that to me, oh, I mean, look,
SMD? You don't tell nobody
look.
SMD. That's
Listen,
crazy.
at the end of the day, you're right. It is crazy. You should not do that. And I'm from Patterson, New Jersey, so you definitely should not say that to me.
You
And so that is a
never.
fair warning. That is a fair warning. So do not say that. Um, but I think, although they seem similar, and I feel like with that conversation, we talk about hate speech versus that. It could be a little apple to oranges there going on. Come on,
Okay.
Rodney. A little bit.
I'm gonna let Samaria cook because we can talk about that all day. Because I
No, because yesterday, Essence, we had a fierce debate about the Ryan Clark RG3 situation. I don't know if you want to chime in on it, but Rodney and I did not see eye to eye on that when they were
Oh
going
wow.
back and forth about the Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark.
well, I would imagine Essence is on my side, but I'll let her speak her truth.
What's your take? What's your take though?
Oh.
I
And
think
what's your take? And I'll let you know.
you said it at the beginning of your last remarks. Family is out of bounds in any capacity. And as a man, I've always been taught if I have an issue with another man, I do not mention his partner, his spouse. To me, that is completely out of bounds. And Ryan Clark took it there. He made mention of that man's wife. And not even that he said anything negative about his wife, but he used that relationship to highlight and amplify and undercut RG3's sentiment about Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. Criticize his perspective, fine, but don't mention my wife in the midst of that. That's my position.
I can agree with that. I think family's out of bounds. I do. At all costs, in the world of sport, and world especially in the world of sport, let's put it that way, is out of bounds, and even outside of sport is out of bounds. Let's keep this between you and I. Um, you know, my spouse, my partner, they didn't. What do they have to do with what's on the table right now? Become a little bit more creative with your comebacks, I guess.
It's a lot of things to make fun of RG3 about. Bringing up his spouse, I just feel like was out of bounds and in poor taste. And I think Ryan Clark is a brilliant, brilliant brother. In that moment, he showed just a lack of judgment, in my opinion. Samaria, clearly you have a response.
No, I don't. I don't think that he was bashing his wife. I think that he was highlighting the way that RG3 focuses on his wife's whiteness to say that he's unable to have empathy for Angel Reese. That's what I feel like he was doing.
Now,
By
see,
mere
that's a different
mention.
take. Yeah,
See,
but that is
that's what
a
I'm
slightly
saying.
different take.
If you're on social media saying I'm with my tall glass of milk, I'm the milkman, he is so hyper focused. It's like a fetish of his.
Yo,
That's what I thought Ryan
Oh, it's
Clark was
getting
trying
deep
to
here.
say.
Essence,
Yes,
Essence,
he
I
was
love
trying to
this.
therapize. He was trying to therapize
Essence.
RG3, and I thought that he
She
wasn't
looking
completely
off.
off.
Essence.
Whoa. It's
Here's
getting deep
where
here. It's getting deep.
You done brought up the transatlantic slave trade and
Look, man, look.
Where
Sport
you
is a
here.
microcosm of what's happening in the world, and that has always been that way.
For sure.
So I would be remiss not to even show or speak on how it is related. There's a whole book on this, guys. You know, the $40 million. Come on, let's be real here. It's all connected, but I don't know if we want to get that deep. You know, today I know we're trying to focus on a lot of these, sports topics. You know, we
That's
can,
a good pivot.
I'm just saying, I am definitely open to those conversations. You just throughout my history, but I don't know. We might want to stay focused on sports here because we'll be here a long time. That's not just a 15-minute conversation.
It is not.
We look, man. I probably have 6 dissertations on that topic, and that's the thing about being a Black athlete, the many faces that you have to wear and how you have to show up, and sometimes you have to put one face away to show up as this person, to show up as this player while disregarding this part of yourself. And you do it daily, and sometimes you do it enough that it just becomes second nature, and then it becomes who you are, and it's tough to deal with mentally when you actually think about it, and even after when it's all said and done, when you look at it and you're like, dang, I participated in that, but then you're like, it kept the lights on, it gave me this life. Now, I'm not saying that is my plight, but I've seen it happen time and time again. And it's tough. It's tough to be in these games. There's a lot of games going on at one time. It's a lot of games going on at one time that we've become so well at adapting to and being able to play that people just think that that's just how we are. And it's like, no, we had to learn this. But that speaks to how great we are and how we can show up in any and every room and still be every time.
Well, on a brighter note, I was going to have a little fun question, Essence. If you were still playing today, which WNBA team would you want to suit up for?
Who needs Essence Carson? All-world defender, elite mid-range game, take you to the cup, to the Baja.
Look, man. I'm sticking with the home team. I would go back to the Liberty. When I went back out there last year to a game, just seeing all the fans and the love that I received in the arena. Not only that, just seeing them really play the type of basketball that we're known to play, being really tough, and just pushing through every run that another team may make, and it's like you're never out of the game. You're never out. That's the style of basketball that I do enjoy, and especially with B going down, a Rutgers player for a Rutgers player, that would be amazing. So I would definitely take it back to the New York Liberty and finish it where I started.
You and Natasha Cloud would be hell for a backcourt to have to deal with.
Yo, Tosh, Tosh be putting the clamps on, and I think more recently she's been able to show how she can put points on the board, and everyone knows that she can dish out the assists, and she can find people and put her players in position where they can thrive. So I mean, that was a good addition. They did lose Sloot, but I think Tosh was definitely a good addition there.
For sure. Watching her development over the years, obviously I was there when she got drafted by the Mystics, and just seeing how hard she worked and just the trajectory of her career. There was a point in time where she was somewhat of an afterthought, and then she bust her ass, man, and really made herself one of the more valuable players throughout the entire league. I want to ask you, because you played in the league for 12 years, what are the biggest differences that you see in the league today from when you played both on and off the court?
Oh, man. Off the court, I think just accepting players as they are. their stories, and being open to telling those stories. Oftentimes in the past, I think the same story was told over and over again. There was a role that they wanted you to fit in, a mold that they wanted you to fit in, even if that mold necessarily didn't fit you. And there was a type of persona that they were trying to portray to the the viewers, to the fans, to the public, to brands. And just definitely didn't fit each and every player, and you minimize those stories. There's so many amazing stories that you missed out on, right? And being on the inside, you hear and you know these amazing stories, and it was just a shame that the art of storytelling wasn't necessarily there on the women's side that was there on the men's side. People fall in love with players not only because of their showmanship on the court and what they can do on the court. Sometimes fans fall in love with a lot of these players because of their story, because they remind them of who they are, or where they are, or where they are in life, and it gives them hope, right? So now you create that super fan, of that player individually. So I think the individual stories coming to the forefront is amazing. I think getting back to pushing some of these rivalries to the forefront helped a lot. We had some of those in the past, especially when you're thinking about the New York Liberty. Remember the finals between New York Liberty, the Houston Comets, and
Yeah.
it became a thing.
Teaspoon. Yeah.
Exactly. Or when you have the New York Liberty and the LA Sparks, the battles of the coast, the battles of the different styles, grit versus Hollywood. And those type of stories also help the league thrive. But somehow we stepped away from that, and it became very, very cookie cutter, for lack of better words. And you remove uh, some of those stories that I really think that a lot of people would connect to and would fall in love with. So that's my take on it. Off the floor, on the floor, right now, you seeing everyone just show their whole bag. When before, sometimes you would be confined to only playing, not only within the system, but within a certain style of play that was deemed acceptable. But now you're seeing the women get it out there, get in their bag, showing you all the things that we're capable of doing, whether we're mixing somebody up, putting them in the rim, or you got centers doing step back threes. Shout out to JJ doing her
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful thing to see. Growing up on the East Coast, playing in Patterson, playing all out throughout New Jersey, playing throughout New York, I saw those things, right, all day in and day out. You think of Shannon Bobbitt, how she always used to have the ball on a yo-yo on a string
Let's
all the
see.
time. But then when it came to the league, you didn't necessarily see that, because it didn't fit where the league was at that time. But right now, it's a beautiful thing to see. So shout out to all the players getting in a bag.
Last, real quick though, I saw a stat the other day. Caitlin Clark is second all time right now in triple doubles in WNBA history, and she's only played like 42 games. What do you think that says about her?
I mean, her ability to be everywhere, to be effective on the court, and in many different aspects. Whether it's being a threat behind the arc, whether it's using that ability to be a threat behind the arc to then open up spaces for everyone to actually have the vision to get them the ball. And in getting in there, whether you're getting boards as a guard, getting those long rebounds and getting out there, you are just affecting the game in every way that you can. And certain players do have a knack for that. We see that on the men's side, pretty often. On the women's side, where we're starting to see it more often, and it seems that is just a part of who she is. It'll be interesting to see uh, her maintain that as seasons progress, and not only this season, but let's talk about 5 seasons from now, when people start to really understand your game and defensive schemes begin to toughen. It'll be interesting to see where that is in 5 years. But right now, you cannot disregard her ability to affect the game in many ways, and even off the floor.
All right. Well, I appreciate you, family. This is nice. It's always nice talking, what I'm saying, with my Jerseyans. You started in the Garden, okay? Who
Yep.
was on your New Jersey Mount Rushmore?
Woo! At the pro level, because
it
all
could be
great
outside
players
of
don't make
sport.
it pro.
No, that's a
Oh,
fact. That's a fact.
look.
Even outside of sports, there's 4 people from Jersey that when you think about what defines a New Jerseyan, right? Give me 4 people that come to mind.
Queen Latifah, shout out Dana.
For sure, gotta shout out Dana.
I'm gonna try to keep it fair here. We got Mr. Springsteen.
Okay, Bruce. I would expect you to say Bruce Springsteen from.
I know. I'm trying to keep it. Look, I'm trying to keep it fair here. You know what I'm saying? Trying to be unbiased.
Yeah.
Lauryn Hill, of course. That's a no-brainer.
For sure.
I feel like I'm forgetting somebody that's big right now. You put me on the spot.
You need some names. We got Kyrie, Whitney, Shaq.
Oh man, look. Conversation over. Conversation over right now. Okay. Whitney, what am I doing? That's like, come on, bro. I got my Whitney book right here. Look, I'm not even gonna show who it's by. You know what I'm saying? Come on, bro. I should have known that. That was my bad. Whitney's up there. She actually number 1. You know what I'm saying? We got Lauren, then we got Dana, and then I'm just gonna be fair and have Bruce there. You know, I'm just gonna be fair.
Essence, thank you so much for coming on with us, dropping some knowledge, some WNBA facts, even splitting this debate between Rodney and I and RG3 and Ryan Clark.
Oh, that's a tough. No, that's tough. But you were definitely coming from a different perspective. I know Rodney was just trying to keep it sports centered, but like I said, sports can get really, really layered. And I see where you were going with that, and I don't think you're wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? But that's, like I said, that's a whole nother conversation. So if the Fumble ever does, you know what I'm saying, a spot on that, where we're gonna have to extend that. We're going to have to extend that spot for longer than 15, 20 minutes, though. I think that is a good conversation.
Sure. Well, we appreciate you. Y'all let us know your thoughts on all things Essence Carson in our comments section. My sister, keep that clavicle popping, all right?
Thank you guys for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Sure.
Shout out to Jersey.